So yesterday I looked at LaunchDarkly's ability to target personally identifiable information, or PII, without actually having to send said PII data to the LaunchDarkly server, therefore keeping that information more secure, keeping it within the boundaries of the application. Today I want to look at another relatively new LaunchDarkly feature, which is the ability to create multivariant feature flags in which you as the engineer can actually provide or define custom feature flag variation values instead of the traditional true-false Boolean. So to explore that concept, I wanted to create a log level operations feature flag that changes the minimum log level acknowledged by the application. So to explore, let's look at the code. Here I'm creating my LaunchDarkly client, and then I'm creating a logger service, and I'm passing it my LaunchDarkly client, right, in version of control. That's how we should be doing things. And then I create a loop that I'm going to run through every 1 second, and you can see inside of this loop I'm using the logger to perform various logging actions: debugging, info, warn, error, and then you can see the loop restarts every 1,000 milliseconds, or once a second. Here I'm using this read memory method, and the read memory method is just using some randomization to randomly throw errors or return simulated memory allocation. It's a silly example. I just needed something that could change and throw errors. And let's take a quick look at our logger. So if we scroll up to the logger, you can see that our logger again takes the LaunchDarkly client, stores it internally, and then exposes typical logging methods like debug, error, info, warn. And then internally you can see each one of these checks to see if it can log that particular level, right? Can I log warn inside the warn method? Can I log info inside the info method? And so on and so forth. And here inside the can log method, you see I'm getting the LaunchDarkly client, and I'm looking at the variation for this operations feature flag, operations minimum log level. And for the key, I'm defining the application itself. Now yesterday we would use some sort of a user identifier, like a primary key or something to that effect, to identify the user. In this case, the user is the application, so I need to define the key as some sort of application identification. In this case, I'm just saying node test app. And here we're then looking at the minimum log level defined by the feature flag, and if the minimum log level is above the requested error level, or the log level, then I'm just going to simply ignore it. Anyway, let's now take a look so we can get a sense of how these variations work. Let's take a quick look at the LaunchDarkly site. So here is my operations feature flag, minimum log level. And if we go over to the variations tab, what you can see is that I have custom variations here. It's not just a Boolean value, it's not just true false. I'm actually defining error, warn, info, and debug as the variation values. And if we look at targeting, we can see that as the default rule here, I can serve up any one of those custom variations, right? So in this case, I'm going to start out as debug, but I could change it to error, warn, info, and so on. And let's actually go into our Node console here, and let's turn this on. And it's going to start executing that loop, and you can see it's checking for memory. I have debug output here, I have error output, I have info, I have warn, and so on and so forth. So now if we jump back over into LaunchDarkly, we can move this over to the side. Let's see what happens if we change the log level being served by the application. So if we go to info, and let me save it. And here you can see the log level info has changed. So you can see we're no longer getting these debug outputs at the top of every iteration. Now if we change from info to warn, you'll see that we stop getting the memory used, and we're just going to be getting the error for IO errors and the warn itself. Now if we go to error level and save it, you'll see that we stop getting the warn, and we only get the IO error from the simulated memory read. So what the multivariant allows us to do is define completely custom feature flags, and that ability to define custom values really opens up a whole new world of opportunity in allowing feature flags to drive more operational aspects of our site, right? So in this case, I'm defining the minimum log level being acknowledged by the site so that I can limit the amount of logs that are being output most of the time, and then maybe for in cases where I really need to debug a problem that's mysterious, I can lower the log levels to start to get more granular logging that might not necessarily need to be output all of the time, right? Let's say I want to go again back to debug, and you'll see immediately all of those new logs start showing up in our output here. So anyway, it's really exciting to see LaunchDarkly, how it's matured since I've started using it several years ago, and there just appear to be a lot of new features that I'm looking forward to really leveraging in my upcoming application code.